Hey Kat, how are you?
Hey, good, how are you?
I'm alright. How have things been going?
Well, things are a little bit of a struggle right now. So, my students are not participatory. They can't even to look at me, let alone answer a question. So, in your many years of expertise, I need some advice.
You know what? I had the same issue with my students when we first started. I'll tell you about something that I did. It was something to do with a tool that I found online, and it changed the way that I use it in my classroom. It was a great experience.
That would be super helpful.
I had just started teaching Shakespeare's Macbeth in class, and we were reading the first act out loud. We read through the first scene, the one where the three weird sisters are chanting about how the next time they'll be meeting with Macbeth and prophesizing his future. I asked the class if they had any questions about what they had just read, and if they needed any clarification about the scene. They just stared back at me, or looked away, or a lot like what they did to you. So I assumed that everyone understood and we were good to go. We finished the act, and once again I asked if they had any questions. I had one student in the front row ask about a certain line from later in the play, but all the other students just sat there quietly. I thought, great, everyone seems to understand. Well, that wasn't the case. The next day I gave them a quiz to check for their understanding of the previous day's reading, and the answers I got back were not anywhere close to what the actual text was about. I realized that I had really had to figure out what to do, so I did some research. I found a tool online that I thought might give the students an opportunity to ask questions without having to actually verbalize them, and I could utilize their smartphones in class, instead of worrying about them being on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I found Poll Everywhere, which is a great online tool that lets you create poll questions that can be true or false, multiple choice, or open response. I thought, I'll give it a try, what do I have to lose? Well, I started with some multiple choice questions the first time that I used it, just some easier ones that would get to the point of what I wanted them to remember from the act. By Act 3, I was using it with short answer questions. I would get good answers. I was actually able to see their answers live on the board behind me as we were reading, and I could tell if there were any issues with the questions I was asking, or if we needed to go back over a certain part. By Acts 4 and 5, I decided to use the open response option. I told the students that at any time during the reading, if they had a question, they could send it using the code or the website that was on the board, and it would pop up on the poll, I would see it, and we could address the problem right away. I told them that it would be anonymous so they wouldn't have to worry about any of their classmates knowing who asked it, and you know what? It worked! I had multiple students asking questions during the reading that were insightful and pertained to what we were doing. I was so thankful to finally have something that could help my students get involved in the reading.
As the semester went on, I started using Poll Everywhere a little less frequently because my students started talking about it a lot more in class, so they did it on their own. I still have it up every time we have a reading so they can ask questions anonymously, just so they get a little more comfortable with each other and with interacting in class.
How long did it take them to start using it effectively?
It took probably about a quarter of a semester, but
Okay.
they started getting into it, and you know what? After a while, they just started asking questions in class, and they were ready to go every class period.
That's really awesome. I think I'm gonna try it.
Awesome, that's exactly what you have to do. You just have to try something. There are dozens of tools out there for you to use, like Pear Deck, Socrative, Kahoot. They're all awesome tools you can use. You just have to figure out how you can use them in your class specifically and with your students. It's going to depend on what your students are like each semester, so something might not work one semester, but the next semester it might. So it just kind of depends on your students, and you just kind of have to explore for yourself and figure out what's out there.
That's great. I definitely want to try some of those new tools, so thanks a lot. I appreciate the tips.